Every year, nearly 200,000 tourists visit Lake Macquarie and its attractions. That adds up to around $38 million in revenue. But according to the city's tourism manager, there's a new market now open to any entrepreneurial homemaker, bed and breakfast.
Provided they comply with certain safety standards, comply with certain hygiene standards, that anybody virtually can rent 2 bedrooms, provided the family's at home with them, and come and stay with them.
With council backing the scheme, Mike Ridley says the potential is unlimited.
It gives us more infrastructure, gives us more product to sell as far as the tourism and promotion side of things are concerned. It's also a wonderful benefit to the people who are coming. What better way can you enjoy the lifestyle of Lake Macquarie than actually sit on the edge of the lake and watch the sunrise or the sunset?
Bed and breakfast is a huge industry in Europe and the UK. In Lake Macquarie, they're hoping to cater for both the overseas and domestic traveller, providing a homely alternative to a motel.
And there will be no conflict. There's certain markets that go and stay in hotels and motels. There's markets that want to come and stay within a bed and breakfast sort of thing. But remember, it is a niche market. It's part of the overall package. Once people get to know what Lake Macquarie is all about, it brings all sorts of consequences that people come to the area and like the area. They may stay here, they may buy a house, they may relocate their businesses.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
He may or may not have a physical reason for being intellectually disabled.
It was no charity campaign by the members of Coffs Harbour School of Natural Medicine. They got to test their touch on the patients, while the residents weren't complaining at all. The 20 students left no stone unturned, massaging feet, legs, hands, arms and even heads. By the end of the 2-hour visit, all 40 residents had been treated. Nursing home staff said the visit was a great idea. Not only did it provide the residents with a relaxing free massage, but also vital social contact. It's the first time the massage students have tried their skills at the nursing home, and they are sure to return by popular demand.
The under-17s set the precedent for the night, running in a stack of tries. Brock Mathers from Foster was always Johnny on the spot for Country. However, City were just too good. The final score, City 48, Country 16. The under-19s game virtually reached the standard of a first-grade clash. No coincidence, because nearly every one of these boys are playing reserve grade in Sydney or for their home country sides. Andrew Tangata-Toa from the Knights was in sensational form. Some of the other standouts include clubmates Andrew Johns, who controlled every scrum, and prop Stuart Collins, who led the way for the forwards. Collins is in great form after missing most of last season through injury. On the country side of the ledger, hooker Troy Jagonski from Tweed Heads did enough with the boot to be considered for the state side, along with centre Matthew Manning from Foster, who tackled brilliantly all night. The final score, City 62, Country 18. It's expected the New South Wales team will be announced later tonight.
The 65-year-old woman from Glendonbrook was trapped in a car after it left Gresford Road near Westbrook Bridge, slid down an embankment and hit trees. At first, rescuers travelling to the scene feared the car may have landed in a creek. Emergency personnel from Branxton and Singleton freed the woman, who was then airlifted to Newcastle's John Hunter Hospital, suffering injuries to her head, chest and pelvis. Singleton police are urging motorists to take it easy in the slippery conditions. The Corlett family from Mirrabooka had a bedside get-together to meet the Hunters' first Mother's Day baby. Mum Jennifer, Dad Ian and son Ben, along with proud grandparents, are getting acquainted with Sarah. Bub, who was born just before 1 o'clock and weighed a little under 3.5 kilos, couldn't have timed this Mother's Day present any better.
Well, she's actually late, so it was just luck.
Totally different, isn't it? Yeah, it's a new experience.
Other mums were grateful to the crew of the Lifesaver Rescue helicopter and the hospital's neonatal intensive care unit. Medical teams spent the early hours of Mother's Day ferrying 2 seriously ill newborns from Taree. Both little girls are now reported to be doing well. Those who braved the wet conditions were rewarded with the rare sight of these now Titan-like machines wheezing and groaning from every joint. Clouds of steam like the mists of time swirled around tons of living metal that has somehow managed to avoid the wrecker's yard. The grand old Loco 3801 flashed into Maitland Station, rising to the challenge of the Great Plain Train Race. Its traditional adversary, a Tiger Moth, was weathered in, but local pilot Chris Brandon volunteered his Flyrite-powered hang glider for the job. There wasn't an empty seat for the race from Newcastle to Maitland, and in the end, it was the train's day.
South beat West in a pre-season game and knew that was in the back of their opposition's mind. By half-time they were in front 10-6. When the Lions came back out, they were determined to keep the ball in West's half. Over and over it was fired downfield, and more often than not they got it back, pinning the fullback in his goal or by forcing an error. It was a typical physical encounter, Brett Hode never giving in, and John Crooks taking a couple on and still managing to slip the ball away. The tackling also provided another test of the league's new head-high rule. South's officials spent today looking at video to determine whether they will side West's Patrick Nandy over 2 tackles. The lead continually seesawed and nobody was game to leave the ground until full time. With just 4 minutes to go, South wrapped it up with a try from Troy Clark. And full time was the trigger to set off the emotions of the happiest team in town.
Well, it's sort of like grand final celebration, you could say, because everyone likes to beat West, whether they've won 25 straight or not. But the thing is, we've got to get back to reality now, and next Tuesday night it all starts again.
West acknowledged that every game they won they were closer to a loss and will now concentrate on next week's game against Curry. Every morning they're in the pool by 5 o'clock, and for the next 2 months the training seems to have more purpose than normal. In July, 14-year-old Linda Campbell and 16-year-old Andrew Cairns head off to swim in Germany and the United States. Both recently collected a swag of medals at the New South Wales Championships, winning their way into the state squad. And they couldn't have joined the team at a better time. The national squads are only touring Australia, while the state sides are heading overseas.
If they don't have these trips for them, there's no reward. There's no monetary reward. You're doing 20-hour weeks in the water and probably 80 Ks, and if you haven't got that reward at the end, it's just not worthwhile.
Andrew was determined to train harder than normal because shortly after he was told of his selection, he had a terrible run of bad luck, tearing a shoulder muscle and getting an ear infection.
You've got to have like a week out of the water, and that week means being fit and having to start all over again, so it takes a lot out of you.
His coach says Andrew shouldn't be too worried about slotting into international competition.
He's probably rated number 3 or 4 in the world anyway, so in Germany he'll have it pretty easy actually.
Shane believes Linda is also on the verge of world recognition.
She's in a very tough age group with the distance swimmers, but she can definitely come through in the next couple of years.
The pair will continue training right up to the day they leave in July.
Gary is HIV positive. Like many people who have the virus, he's been treated by Dr. David Sutherland at the Newcastle-based clinic. Dr. Sutherland is head of the department and a leader in his field. However, as of July, he'll leave the public health service.
A lot of people are really concerned about where their care is going to come from.
Frustrated by the system, Dr. Sutherland tendered his resignation last week.
We have seen a gradual but steady erosion of our services as a result of budget cuts. I now feel that it is immoral, unethical to continue, that the standard is unacceptably low.
Dr. Sutherland says the Hunter gets $2.5 million from state and federal governments, designated specifically for AIDS-related services. He claims that about $400,000 isn't being used for HIV and AIDS services as it's intended.
Some of the money we believe is being used to fund non-HIV, non-AIDS activities. In other words, to top up the Hunter Area Health Service budget in other areas.
Dr. Sutherland has called for an independent inquiry into the HIV/AIDS budget. Jane Anderson, NBN News. The water bill for shops and other commercial properties in the Hunter is determined only in part by the user pays system. Part of the bill is based on the value of the property. The pricing tribunal has decided to reduce the property tax component of the commercial sector's bill. Overall, this will mean a saving for the non-residential sector of about $8 million. Meanwhile, for most other customers, there'll be an increase in water and sewerage. However, it'll be confined to 1.1%, in line with the CPI. The future pricing policies will be contained in the Tribunal's interim report, which will be released later this month.
Two years ago, 18-year-old David Everly began an apprenticeship as a train builder, but 4 months into his new job, he began to lose his sight. Within 6 months, he'd lost 95% of his vision. Doctors explained it as a deterioration in his optic nerves. Unable to continue his job, David began coming here to the Maitland office of the Commonwealth Rehabilitation Service.
I've been coming here for about 18 months, and in that period, the first 12 months, I went to Tyres Hill TAFE as a student doing the microcomputer certificate.
David has a special speech card computer which enables him to put his skills into practice. The service believes David would be suited to a personnel or marketing job where his people skills, which he has plenty of, can shine through. What he needs is
So we'd like an employer to come to us and say, use our workplace, we'll help you as much as we can, and if David enjoys the work, we'll look at supporting him for a further retraining program.
David is just one of more than 31,000 Australians helped by the Rehabilitation Service every year. By returning people to the workforce, it not only improves their self-esteem and financial independence, but reduces government and community expenditure on welfare. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
Project Earth is designed to get children thinking about global and local environmental issues. The scheme got off to an enthusiastic start at Hamilton Primary School today. Newcastle Knight players Tony Kemp and Matthew Johns joined in. Front rower Tony Butterfield, the brains behind the idea.
Anyone can be in it, any school, and all they need to be enthusiastic about looking after the environment, basically. We're after practical ideas, things that the kids can take with them from the school to home.
Sponsored by Newcastle and Lake Macquarie Councils and Buttercup, there's $7,000 in prize money for the best ideas on the management of energy, conservation and land care. And the Buttercup support for junior talent in the area also spread to the football field today. In conjunction with Oak Milk and the Knights, they've established a new set of awards for the people behind Junior Rugby League.
Well, every association has given it the seal of approval, and they've all voiced their excitement over the concept. So I think already, before it's even kicked off, those people are excited about it, and obviously there's a $500 incentive at the end for the winning clubs in each category.
Coaches must be nominated by their clubs. The judging panel will be made up of Knights staff and prominent players. Under a Skillshare program, these workers have been given a tough assignment by the newly formed BIG, the Bullaroo Improvement Group. Over the next week, they'll be greening Main Road, laying turf, installing planter boxes and helping to remove an image problem.
As far as everybody's concerned, we're all lead contaminated, we're untouchable, and there are even some people that's calling Bullaroo Lead City, which is just not true.
People only have this one idea that Bullaroo and lead. They don't realise there's other things here in Bullaroo. So if we show people what we've got to offer them, you know, it'll attract more customers, it might attract more businesses, and in the long run everyone will benefit.
Pasminco has given $10,000 towards the project, with local businesses also contributing. It's a community effort, proving big really can be beautiful.
We want to maybe pave the footpath and go from there, maybe fix up some of the buildings, the older buildings around and that type of thing.
We've got bigger things planned, we're getting bigger all the time, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to make Bullaroo one of the biggest little towns on the lake.
Lake Macquarie Council today lost its fight to save what it believes is an important part of Australia's mining heritage. The Land and Environment Court has given the owner, FAI Mining, the green light to pull down all of the buildings on the disused site. It's a decision which has angered Colin Mundy from the Friends of Lambton Colliery Action Group.
I think it's an appalling decision.
Today the company knocked down 2 buildings, the loco charge room and the compressor room. Colin Mundy claims the company began work as soon as it got permission from the court.
Today they knocked down one half of the complex, and those buildings were an integral part of that complex.
However, FAI Mining says it has not pulled down any of the buildings that were the subject of today's legal action. It says the company was given permission to tear down the 2 buildings at an earlier court case. The company plans to hold talks with Lake Macquarie Council and the community about preserving some of the buildings. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
The fiberglass twin-hulled craft arrived right on schedule at Nelson Bay after its 4-hour maiden voyage from Sydney. It's the sister ship of another vessel recently commissioned for Lake Macquarie Water Police. These $70,000 boats should help cast off the uncertainties that surrounded the future of the Water Police service, which in some cases had been making do with ageing aluminium boats.
Yes, it's been put well and truly to rest.
A craft such as this is probably pretty much purpose-made for this area.
Yes, it's purpose-made to see it'll go right up the Mile River too to assist the Tea Gardens boat if it's necessary.
Powered by twin 150 horsepower outboards, the boat could cross from Nelson Bay to Tea Gardens in just 15 minutes. The trip by road takes an hour and a half. As well as the boat, a rescue helicopter landing pontoon, established by the Royal Volunteer Coastal Patrol at Tamboy, should aid emergency response times to the miles. The new craft, which is registered to operate 30 kilometres out to sea and 60 kilometres up and down the coast, will join the fleet with the police launch Cess Abbott, also based at Nelson Bay. All officers at the station will be qualified to use the smaller, more manoeuvrable boat. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
A final training run for the Falcons, who travel to Queensland tonight. There they play a double header. First the Townsville Suns tomorrow and the Gold Coast Rollers on Saturday. If they win both, it'll be the best they've done at this stage of the season since 1984, where they boasted a 6-1 win-loss record.
Players, I think, realise that it's a very tough league that we're playing in. There are no easy games, and they enjoy the feeling of being number one, and they want to work hard to maintain it.
Today the team reviewed the Townsville Suns' form. Townsville played the Falcons several weeks ago and gave them a run for their money, especially American import Ricky Jones, who scored 47 points.
We're looking at beating the Townsville Suns. We don't look at trying to keep one player necessarily under what he's been scoring. If we feel that that's going to help us to win, yes.
While in Queensland, Falcons guard Sean Dennis will get his first run for the season.
Today, members of the Students' Association were working on other matters now that the long-running battle to build the Warrabrook train station is over. This week, State Minister for Transport Bruce Baird backed down on a decision against the proposal, telling Federal Transport Chief Collins that he now supported the idea.
We've just been a persistent bunch of students who have been knocking on doors and writing letters and calling meetings and trying to push the politicians into making some decisions.
Chris Fotef and Wayne McRae have been at the front line, representing not only thousands of students and staff, but also the surrounding community, which could also be served by a station at Warrabrook. Work is due to be completed by early next year. Claiming some issues still need fine-tuning, students are now asking why the $2.5 million in funding does not include access on both sides.
Originally it was intended to be access to both, so we'll be asking independent groups to re-evaluate the costings involved, because we feel they're a bit high for what the state government's trying to do with it.
Police raced to the Hunter United at Garden City at around 5 o'clock. A bandit wearing a scarf over his face entered the credit union demanding money. Eyewitnesses say he was waving a weapon. As he tried to escape, a shop worker attempted to run him down.
Nick that works here, he chased him out and he said, call the police. The guy says, stay there or I'll shoot, and then pointed whatever he had in his hand at Nick. And Nick, the guy took off out the door and we just started chasing him.
But the thief escaped into the maze of peak hour traffic. Police have described him as tall, wearing blue jeans and a pale blue football jumper. This is the third robbery of this type in Newcastle in the last week. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Winter. It's a time of year when more people in need turn to organisations like the Samaritan Foundation. The Bishop is appealing for funds to help the children.
Many events within society have pointed out to us, that children are our greatest treasure, but they're also the group that's most at risk today.
Previous donors were invited to the service in Christchurch Cathedral. The Samaritan Foundation will concentrate on services and accommodation for children, particularly the homeless.
We've been really concerned about the numbers of children under the age of 15 who are coming seeking emergency accommodation and refuge.
The tranquility of the Arimba forest on the Central Coast will be shattered over the weekend with plenty of rally car grunt. One of the leading contenders will be Matcham's Warren Ridge. Ridge started his career on these tracks, giving him a definite home ground advantage.
I've got a good idea of the forests up here because I've been rallying, 14 years now. But you're not up here every weekend, and therefore you don't remember every corner and every sort of situation that might catch you out.
His car is the latest import from Mitsubishi, Japan, designed purely for rallying. The Lancer RS sits comfortably at 200 kilometres an hour along the dirt tracks, but he won't be able to rely on just the forest sections to win. Organisers have included a number of street and circuit stages. The course designer has really thought about attracting spectators and has set all the circuits up to give fans a good look at the cars in action. The Wyong Rally is growing in international stance. The Hyundai Motor Company will use the event to unveil their new off-road cars. The rally gets underway tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock at the Entrance Sports Centre. Darren Curtis, NBN News.
Last night, the Hunter United Credit Union was robbed at Garden City, the armed bandit escaping into the night. Last week, another armed thief escaped with cash from the National Australia Bank at the Junction. 10 service stations, banks, clubs and credit unions have been knocked over in the last 2 months. Police believe it's a sign of the times.
Unfortunately, I think it's a sad part of the economic situation at the present time with unemployment and everything else, and a lot of it too is associated with use of drugs.
The Junction's National Australia now has an armed guard outside its bank. The Employees Union at the Commonwealth is looking to tighter security for its members, with crime spilling out of the capital cities. The Commonwealth Bank Officers Association is worried the bandits are moving out of Sydney, where security is at a premium, to so-called easier targets in regional areas. The association is sending an officer to Newcastle to make sure Commonwealth branches here are safe for customers and staff. Police have urged anyone who witnesses a robbery to stay clear. If possible, get a number plate of the getaway car. But as security systems stay as they are, detectives believe bank and credit union staff must just be aware.
All they can do is be more aware of people who are acting suspiciously in and around the premises where they work. If they consider that there is someone that is acting suspiciously, give the police a call and we can certainly come and check that out.